Juror number two, the latest Eastwood film, which had a limited run in theaters, and I believe probably by the time this episode comes out, should be on streaming. So if people
It's
haven't
on
seen it,
iTunes already, so people
okay, okay.
can rent it. Yep.
Yeah, if people haven't seen it, we'll probably get into some spoilers. I know it was hard to see, so if you're planning on seeing it, maybe you want to skip ahead just to the next part of the episode where we get into his back catalog. But this is
Yeah.
juror number two, the IMDb plot summary. While serving as a juror in a high-profile murder trial, a man finds himself struggling with a serious moral dilemma, one he could use to sway the jury verdict and potentially convict or free the wrong killer. So obviously, Clint Eastwood is the director here, starring Nicholas Hoult, Toni Collette, and J.K. Simmons. So I'll start with my thoughts on the film. I thought this was very good. Definitely blown away that he's still at this age able to deliver something as interesting as this movie. The plot you have to kind of go along with. So the plot is essentially that Nicholas Hoult is picked on a jury, and in this jury he realizes that the person being put on trial is for the murder of a woman he accidentally killed in a hit and run. So he realizes he's the guilty party, but there's someone else on trial for this murder. He is, has a family that he wants to protect, so he doesn't necessarily want to come forward. But what do you do in that situation? Like that's the moral dilemma. Getting back to the Clint themes, and that is a little pulpy and in a way far fetched. But because I think Clint's style is so matter of fact, grounded, and I'll use the word plain and banal, not in as pejoratives though, you kind of buy it. It doesn't feel over the top and cheesy where it feels like a soap opera, even though that is sort of like a soap opera plot. But as long as you can kind of go with that, I thought it was a great movie with a lot of really great performances, especially Nicholas Hoult just really surprised me in terms of what he was wrestling with. And a very interesting juxtaposition to Toni Collette's character in this film, too, who's a lawyer running for DA. And as she starts realizing that this case that she needs to win to help her political career, that she might be convicting an innocent man, she has to make moral choices as well about, do I put my career over someone getting free, in the same way that Nicholas Holt's character is wrestling with, do I now go to jail and basically like doom the life of my newborn child to have a father behind bars, or do I just kind of let this guy go down for this because he's kind of a bad guy, maybe he abused his girlfriend, I don't know, like
Hmm.
that's the dilemmas that he's wrestling with. I think those are fascinating, and I loved how the movie ends too, with it not fully resolving or kind of making a judgment on who's being good and who's being bad here. I thought that was brilliant. So what were your initial thoughts of juror number two?
I enjoyed it as well. I would say it's like a solid to very good movie. I wouldn't put this in kind of the great catalog of Clint. Very much felt like a HBO movie or Showtime movie or what have you. The plot itself I think is very intriguing, and though I agree it can be pulpy, but it had my attention throughout, which I think is it's so hard to pull off these days, right? Because we are just so scatterbrained, and
Hmm.
his style and his grounding of the material is critical, right? Otherwise, the tone of this could be quite weird and pulpy and cheesy, which just wouldn't work. I think he presents a lot of gravitas to a movie like this and a story like this.
Hmm.
I think the things that maybe held me back a little bit. I do like Nicholas Holt's performance, but I don't know. I find him better when he's sort of over the top, like in The Favorite or Mad Max. I
Mm.
think he's a little too flat and bland for me. And I was thinking about this, that because, as you said, Clint's style is not showy. His storytelling is very grounded, but often he has really good actors who are able to sort of, I don't want to say again, elevate in like a pejorative way, but it's a great balance, right? Like the rest of the movie is grounded, but this actor really pops in
Hmm.
like the right way. And I think that balance sort of really works. And we'll see that in a lot of the movies that we'll touch today. But I think to me, he holds the movie back because he's
Mm.
just so
Interesting.
internal. Whenever Tony was on screen, I was sort of woken up. When J.K. Simmons is on screen for like a few brief screens, I was a little bit woken up. But Nicholas Hoult is the lead of the movie. And also, like physically, he looks like a San Franciscan, like a tech guy. Like we didn't do much to make him off the place, which is sort of my second kind of hellback point. Like I was saying earlier, Clint is often very interested in the towns and cities, not in like a showy way, like you said, but you feel like you live there. I don't think the scope of this movie, again, he's never showy, but you get to see the city, you get to kind of feel what it might be to live like over here. But because of partly Nicholas Holt's look, but also how the movie is sort of shows, Atlanta or wherever they're at. Where are they at?
Savannah. They're at Savannah.
Savannah, yeah. You sort of feel like this bar could be anywhere, where the main action happens. Or these, and I know a lot of the movies in the courtroom, so that can also be anywhere. But
Right.
usually, Clint actually spends enough time, or just enough time, to kind of give you a sense of the place and the people, and you sort of feel transported. And I didn't. So those two things to me kind of bring it to that sort of TV movie crime drama level. Still very good and solid, but just not what I've seen Clint do in the past.
Yeah, I think I definitely liked it better than you then. I mean, I'd probably put this at the bottom end of top 10 Clint movies I've seen, which is probably
Oh,
like 25 or 26 of his movies. I think something like that I've seen. To me, yeah, the setting. So we actually will cover a movie in our episode later that is set in Savannah that is a lot more about. I mean, I've been to Savannah, and that is that you get more of a sense of the feel of the city. Whereas
yeah,
this, to your point, yeah, it is a lot in the courtroom. But I felt the characters in this, like the scenes where there are in the courtroom, you hear the different people on the jury, and they're definitely everyday folks. There's a bus driver in there. There's like a young kid. There's a like a medical student, and that flavor to me felt like a small town. You know, Savannah's not a big
agreed.
place. I felt like, okay, through the characters, I was transported there, though, yes, because they don't really get into the physical locations so much because it's a small movie in terms of scale. A lot of them are just
Yeah,
talking in rooms. But I felt that that mix of personalities and flavors in the jury room to me felt very authentic. I mean, I've never been on a jury before, but I've gone in for jury duty and seen people try to get out of it and all the things that they talk about or
hmm,
show in this movie. And, you know, you do kind of be like, yeah, I could see why someone in the jury could just be like, let's just get this over with. Like, let's just vote. Okay, we all think he's guilty.
yeah,
Great. Like, move forward. And these are the reasons why. Oh, I have kids, or, you know, I just don't care. Or I have this vendetta against this type of person. All the things that come up in this to me is what made it feel real or a slice of
I
that
agree.
town.
Yeah,
But you know
that was
that
pretty
worked.
real.
That worked for me. J.K.
Yeah,
Simmons, especially. I think those actors actually in that the courtroom or the on the jury in those scenes were really fun and kept the movie
I totally agree. And
moving. You know.
often, like those scenes can feel very sort of play like,
Yes.
but they didn't. They felt movie like as much as possible. And so yeah, I agree. I think there's transportation over there, but yeah, I think my issue really is, sorry to say, I do like Nicholas Hoult, but
Mm,
it's just a little
interesting.
tad flat for me. That's my big thing.
No, that's fair. If that didn't work, that is the crux of the movie because it's his. Well, yeah, and Tony Collette too, to a certain extent, but it really is
Yeah,
his dilemma of like, what do I do, and at what point do I give up? Which you know he basically does, and is like, okay, I'm not going to fight this anymore. Maybe I can get away with this, and I can sort of absolve my conscience of it, and it'll be fine. There'll be
yeah.
no concern there. That I thought was interesting, and a lot of the themes too of choice were also about consequence and past choices, obviously, right? Because it was a
Hmm.
hit and run, and again, because it's Clint, you didn't. It was not like at the time he knew it was a hit and run. He thought he hit an animal, and it was
Right,
not until this jury trial that he realized, oh my gosh, actually, I was the one who killed this woman. So it wasn't. He's not a bad guy who like, oh, I hit and run. I'm going to run away because I was drunk. They kind of play with that a little bit in the movie because he is a recovering alcoholic, but
right.
that adds these layers that I think if this were just like a kind of a John Grisham thriller or something, this would be like some bad guy who made these horrible
Yeah,
mistakes and do you forgive him or not? It's like, hey, just a normal guy who does something anyone could do, accidentally hit an animal on the side of the road and it's raining and you kind of feel for him, and that's where the Clint angle of really showing empathy for this guy and you feel for him, and you know I don't, you know, it's like what would you do in that situation? That's a lot of what this movie I think engaged me as an audience member. It's like, well, if that was me, what would I do? It's like I know the right thing to do is to turn yourself in because you don't want guilty or
right.
innocent people to go to prison. But the consequences of that are on your family and your personal life and what's more important. And at the end of the day, maybe if this guy goes away, what's the harm? Is sort of what he goes through. And I think that I like movies like this that engage you as an audience member. To your
No,
point, when we were talking about Clint earlier, he's not preachy. He's not saying
no.
this is what you need to do and make sure you do this. I don't know. He's not gonna make a call about this and just lay out what's going on and what these characters are going through, and then you put yourself immediately in those shoes. Because then you're like, oh, okay, well, that's not a bad guy, but like I'm not a perfect person either. You know, I've everyone knows that they have good and bad in them, so it immediately puts you into his shoes, and that I thought was maybe why Nicholas Holt's performance for me, the understatedness sort of helped a little bit. I'm not a huge fan of his, to be honest, as an actor, and I don't like I dislike him, but
Yeah,
I'm
he's
not
fine.
gonna like run out and see him. But I thought in this actually he did a very good job. I want to call it his performance for me at least. It It really
Mhm.
did. It really did work with the struggle
Yeah,
that
I
he was
think the
going through.
internal dilemma of what you're talking about, like that definitely comes through. And I have to give him credit for that because if that didn't come through and this internal struggle, everything falls apart. And no, the movie is very good. And so I should give him due credit for that part. It's
Hmm.
just that I think he, again, I'm projecting majorly, but it sort of feels like he might have been like, oh, another director through editing and sound cues and such would sort of heighten some of this
Uh,
stuff
mm,
versus Clint doesn't do any of that, right?
right.
Like it's very much about what you're doing. So that's where like there's a little bit of sort of blandness that comes through, and just sort of his look in general. Like I wish they just
Mm,
played a little bit more attention to sort of where are we and who is this person, and it sort of kept me a little bit at arm's length. But yeah, the internal struggle that he's going through, like that is evident from the very first scene when he's cleaning the dishes and talking about kind of the preparation of this like baby shower and what have you. You can feel something is off here. Why
hmm.
is this so important? And the way he tends to his wife, like, so there's trauma there, of course, because the first child, again, huge, all of this is spoiler. So,
Yeah.
the first baby that they had sort of didn't make it. So they're
Hmm.
carrying this sort of trauma, so there's a lot there. But you're so right. Like, this is classic Clinton. I love those stories. I thought about this movie for days after, not just for the specific incident of this movie, but just in general, right? Because that's what happens with good movies. At first, you're thinking about what would I do if I were in those shoes,
Hmm.
but then it becomes bigger, where you start to think about yourself or other people in your life who've done maybe questionable things, but they are good people.
Right.
How do you reckon with that? How do you reckon with yourself? And I think we're all carrying these things, right? I mean, I have not run over anybody in my life, but I've probably, poked
Neither have
that.
I. I just want to put that on so we have this recorded too. My silence is not, yes, I've not either.
So yeah, I'm very glad this movie exists and was made, and great to see Clint at this age, being able to put something like this together, which is entertaining, thought provoking, well mounted. It's pretty amazing how many people can do that.
Exactly. Yeah, I remember when this was announced, I think last year or something. I was like, "Oh, he's making another movie? Like that's crazy at his age." And then they made it so quickly because he always is able
Yeah,
to put pictures together so fast, and then just have it come out and be this good is just a testament to his skills as a filmmaker. And I hope people who haven't seen this movie yet, definitely, I think this is one of those movies where everyone should enjoy some aspect of it.
yeah,
So if it's, especially if it's on some streaming platform, I think it's coming to Max at some point around the
yeah.
holidays. I definitely would check this out and a
Yeah, I
high
recommend it for
review.
sure. And especially
Hmm.
at home, this would play even better, I think.
Hmm.
So great
Absolutely.
family viewing during the holidays. Like everybody's gonna like this movie, I think. So yeah.
Yeah. And good discussion afterwards. You watch this in a
Yeah.
group. I think then it's a lot of debate because the movie ends with not really knowing what the consequences are going to be with Tony Collette or with Nicholas Holt's character, which I
Great
liked
ending
actually.
scene.
So well done. Though I suspect that she made the right choice. She's going to turn him in, is what I think is going to happen. But I like that they don't say that. It's
I do
great.
too. I guess one thing we should mention is that another journey that Toni Collette's character goes through, like she in the beginning is very much like systems work and law works the way it is. And it's sort of fun to see that journey unfold as well, where she starts to question some of that, oh, have we made the wrong decision here? And goes on
Hmm.
her own. And so, yeah, we didn't mention too much about that journey, but that also is very classic Clint, right? And I almost wish she had like a little bit more time spent on her, or the movie
Hmm.
had a little bit more time spent on her, because that's a pretty fascinating journey as well, where she's standing up for, high profile position and really believes in doing right and such. And then all of her kind of belief systems are being questioned as she goes through this. And we don't really get to learn much about her, which, maybe you could argue having just one focal point in a movie is good, but I think this movie had a little bit more room to play maybe her life a little bit more up as well and juxtapose how these two people in very different circumstances are kind of having this kind of moral belief crisis of
Yeah.
sorts, right? Like, who are we? Where do we stand? And then it would have, I think, mounted the pressure towards that ending scene even more if you would have spent a little bit more time with Toni Collette, who obviously is a brilliant actress. So I love watching her in anything and everything.
Yeah, that's a good. point, just another classic Clint theme, like you mentioned at the beginning of the episode too, is this questioning of systems
Yep.
and showing that it's not that the justice system is good or bad. The justice system is made up of people, especially in this example, on a jury. And none of those
Right.
jury members were bad people, even though they were
No.
going to make a bad decision to railroad this guy. And they all have their reasons, and you understand each of those reasons to like, oh, let's just convict him, and this is easy, open shut case. So I think that is again where Clint's worldview is. There is like people are not good or bad at the outset, and that's why you can't necessarily believe in the systems. They're just the only ones we have, and can't pass judgment on them. Which again,
No.
it's not my worldview is everyone is good at the outset, and good people can make bad decisions, and that is sort of that's where I start from. But he starts from in the middle, and that's fine, and it makes for an interesting examination of things. Hi there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I review a new release and then discuss 6 other movies made by that film's actor or director and how they shaped us. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.